Count it up, count it up. Tell them haters look at me now. Every day, payday on my fucking calendar. Hey.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first inaugural Tap the Canvas episode, and we have a very, 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 very special guest. And I keep saying this, but I can't stress it enough. This means the world to us, Tap the Canvas, as content creators, as true diehard wrestling fans. And this individual, this legend in the business, is kicking off our series of interviews in which we have planned throughout the year. And it is none other than an individual who's wrestled in WWF. When it was WWF, WCW, ECW, TNA, former WCW Hardcore Champion, former WCW Tag Team Champion, the nephew of Italian Monster, Lucky Luciano. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Big Vito to the show. Woohoo! There we go.
Thank you very much for the intro. Guys, you got to catch this show. These guys are down to earth people. They're real brothers in the business, and you know what I'm saying? We had a little talk before, a little pregame because, everybody pregames, but we were pregaming about some balling. And, when you come from the hood, right? What's the first thing when you go to a jammy jam? You get to your to-go plate and then you go for your real plate, and always hide your to-go plate because people steal your shit. So let's get down to the interview.
Definitely. Yeah, and Vito, you got a show coming up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the Horsepower Show, and we got word that your opponent for that show, Salem Cranes, been talking a lot of smack. Let's kick it off. You want to address him real quick, man?
Listen, a lot of people have talked smack in my career. Now, I don't know how. I know you guys are a new show, so let's put this in. My rookie year, I started in my rookie year, my first year of training. I made it to the WWF, and I was wrestling the pros. Right. So ever since then, I was way different than a lot of people in the wrestling business. So I learned from the pros. Pros being the Rockers, Hart, the British Bulldog, the Boss Man, the Undertaker.
That's a list.
Tagging with Mike Sharp, Legion of Doom, who became my boys and my brothers.
That's what's up. Yeah.
You're talking about guys like Tatanka,
Yeah.
Virgil, Owen Hart, Coco Beware, Typhoon, wrestling, on Monday Night Raw when it first started in live TV.
The Manhattan Center. Yep.
So, and when you talk about for all the places I've been to, and I know you guys have a new show and you get it all online and stuff. We're doing this. People don't realize that I just didn't start out in ECW. That I did 8 years of Puerto Rico, from the AWF to Japan, to Santo Domingo with Jack Veneno, going back to Puerto Rico, wrestling for USWA, and wrestling in the 90s in the last of the territories. Okay. So if you talk about doing stuff like that, guys, and when I finally made it to ECW, I had just come off a tour with All Japan where I pinned the greatest wrestler of our generation at that time, Misawa.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been with the best of the best, and I challenged the best of the best. And if it wasn't for the guys who were before me, who took the time to teach me and coach me, I would have never made it this far, or never made, the accolades I did. And I always appreciate and thank every veteran out there who took the time to teach me like I'm doing now, because there's so many great veterans who took the time. And the word always is to pass it on. And they passed it on, and I was able to accelerate my career and make it, full circle in the business. We are today, and we're sitting here with you two gentlemen doing your podcast, getting it off the ground. You're talking to me. and I appreciate you guys being a fan. Thank you so much. But then we have these young guys,
Mhm.
they say, they want to talk a little bit of this, they want to talk a little bit of that. But in the end, everybody says they want to kick my ass. I'm still waiting for my ass kicking to come. And everybody, and I'm never afraid to take a punch in the face. I've been taking a punch in the face for a long time. But when it comes down to it, hey, everybody says, I hate that Vito, Vito this, Vito that, Vito the other thing. I say, okay, you ready? You up for the Pepsi challenge? Because I used to be ready for the Pepsi challenge, and I'm still here. And I got much love for the wrestling business and for everybody in it, and for all the guys who helped me. And I extended that help to the guys who are making it today, and I helped them.
Mhm.
That's what the business is about, passing it on. Go ahead, Mike.
Very, very true, very true. Now you coming up in the mean streets of Staten Island. Let's, if we can, take it back there. At what point at did a young Vito catch the wrestling bug?
Well, guys, here's how it started. Like I was going to be a baller. I was going to be a basketball player in high school,
Hmm.
and I had Division I scholarships. I had everything, and just my Coach Schroeder. I was just telling my wife this. I says, Coach Schroeder, I said, Vito, basketball's not everything. My teachers used to tell me this, Vito, basketball. And I said, man, I'm going to make it to the pros. I'm going pro. I played in Madison Square Garden as captain of the basketball team,
Yeah.
MVP of the tournament. I was doing my thing. I had scholarships, and I was like, and then reality set in. They said, Vito, well, we can't give you the scholarship because grade point average isn't what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
Wound up having to go to community college. And when I
Hmm.
go to the community college, I was like, this is not what I wanted. You know what I mean? It was, I wound up trying out for the Olympic baseball team instead, right? Because I was an athlete. And then when the Olympic baseball team didn't work, I went and I did I was going to play semi-pro football. And then once that didn't happen, I was sitting home watching TV one day. Wrestling came on, and I said, "Hey, I think I could do better than these guys." I went to Johnny Rod's school at Gleason's gym. I started wrestling there. And then I was presented with an opportunity to be a pro boxer. I said, Vito, you hit the bag, you hit the speed bag.
Hmm.
We need a white heavyweight. You think you want to do this? And I said, no, I already invested in wrestling. So I stuck with the wrestling. But they see me, because I was in Gleason's gym, the world famous Gleason's gym, where Mike Tyson and every great, boxer came through. They all ran through Gleason's gym.
Hmm.
So when they see me throw hands on the bags, and they seen how tough I was in the ring, and they offered me a job. They said, Vito, we'll pay for your training, we'll offer you a job. He says, you come, we need a white heavyweight. And it was at a time where I was like, I'd like to do it, but I just was into wrestling. And I kind of like my nose in one place, and I'm kind of pretty, so I didn't want to mess up my face that bad. And I don't have any cuts from wrestling.
Hmm.
My body's still good, my face is still good, I'm still handsome. But I knew if I went into the boxing, it would be like, it could be kind of messy. And then when I was in Puerto Rico, I was asked if I was wanting to train in the UFC in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
When the Ultimate Fighter was there, and the person who came up to me and asked me if I'd like to train with them was none other than Tank Abbott. Tank in the
Mm.
90s was a bad son of a bitch.
Yes, yes,
So,
I remember. Yep.
right, so I was banging about 290, 280 at that time, right? So I
Hmm.
was big, I was mean, I was necessary. He says, you would do good in this. You think you want to come over and train with us and, do something with us? I had it in me to do. I had the nasty because you always have the nasty when you don't make it big and you still have that grind.
Hmm.
But I was already wrestling for Carlos Colon. And then if I was going to switch and go do this UFC stuff, I was like, I think I'll pass. You know what I mean? So opportunities were there for me for different things. But pro
Mhm.
wrestling is where I stuck with, man. Where the love came.
And that's awesome. And for a lot of you fans that don't know, Vito City Wrestling for Carlos Colon, that's Carlito's father. So, and he had a huge promotion in Mexico. So, but yeah, that's pretty cool, Vito. And now we also too want to introduce our third member who just jumped on, and he works as an independent wrestler, Jay Thunder. So yeah, this is our third guy right here. There he is, right there.
Hey, how's it
Jay,
going,
how you
guys?
doing?
Good about yourself? It's an honor.
Doing good, man. Why you got that Samoan look on? You know what I mean? You got the U skirt, got the Samoan look. You know
I
what I
just
mean?
didn't I just didn't want to look like a bum today. That's all.
Come on, man. You got a clean shirt on, new hat. You even shaved. I like it, man. It looks good.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, but and Vito and a lot, and I say this a lot because, like I said, you just briefly touched upon the beginning of your career, and I always tell people, your time in this business goes deep, and if you don't know, definitely do your research because you've wrestled uh, probably a who's who of legends, Hall of Famers. Um, what was one of the matches that stands out for you when it comes to this list of legends that you've wrestled?
You know, guys, I wrestled the best of the best in wrestling, and you don't know until the end of your career or the tail end of what's happening in your career to see who does what and who gets the accolades. I wrestled everyone from Hogan to Flair, Bret Hart, the British Bulldog, Owen Hart, Undertaker, Booker T, um, uh, Lex Luger.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been in the ring with the best of the best, and the Honky Tonk Man, Jimmy Snooker,
Mhm.
Ivan Koloff, the Iron Sheik is my tag team partner. And
Mm.
you talk about Johnny Rods, SD Jones.
Yeah,
There is so many people. Bill Eadie, Demolition, Hawk and Animal, Legion of Doom. I mean, the Bushwhackers, Honky Tonk. I mean, Jimmy
Sid Vicious.
Howard. I mean, Sid Vicious.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you talk about just about everybody, every big name, Big Van Vader, uh, Mizawa, uh, all the people from Japan. I mean,
Yeah,
I was tag team partners with Tenru from Japan. I mean, that's the
yeah.
Hogan of wrestling.
Mhm.
And look, when you talk about all the greats, and I'm not misplacing anybody and anybody who's watching, they are all the greats and the guys who took the time to mentor me. If I'm not mentioning your names, because there's so many,
Mhm.
thank you always for teaching me because your time wasn't wasted.
Yeah.
But when it comes to who's who in wrestling, I mean, the guy who I have to say made the mark with me in wrestling has to be Terry Funk. Because
Mm.
wrestling Terry Funk for the hardcore title, Monday Night Nitro. That's not including Kevin Nash, who I main evented Nitro on,
Yeah.
on Monday night. And then
Hmm.
great matches I had with Johnny the Bull, my times with Nunzio, the times with um, the Baldies in ECW. My one of my buddies who I always had great chemistry with, Rob Van Dam.
Yeah.
I mean,
RVD. Yep.
I mean, I if you name people, I probably wrestled them. If I didn't wrestle them, I was in the dressing room with them, and
Hmm.
it's definitely something. And I hope to our friend here who's got his Samoan look on. I hope you experience that kind of love in your life. And being able to wrestle the greats of your era, so you could say 20 years from now or 30 years from now, like me, say, I wrestled the best of the best, you know? And I always say, what would Big Vito in his prime be worth today wrestling now?
Mm.
you think about it, it's just like Mickey Mantle, who was one of the greatest baseball players ever, right? And Mickey Mantle was paid $100,000. What would they pay Mickey Mantle today to be a baseball player? What would he be worth? What would he be think? And sometimes, when I think about things, we'll go for territories like Jack Veneno of the Dominican Republic was the greatest Dominican wrestler. Carlos Colon was the greatest Puerto Rican wrestler, along with Abdul the Butcher and Chicky Star and
Yeah, yeah.
Vega and the Invader. Um, when you talk about Memphis, Jerry Lawler, the Boogie Woogie Man, the Dream,
Mhm.
all the people who came. If you didn't go through Memphis, you didn't make it to the WWE. You know, and I wrestled some of the best talent that ever came through, throughout everybody's locker room. That's including the ECW locker room. All the guys I wrestled with, from Taz to Dreamer to the Dudley Boys, to Lance Storm to Mike Awesome, to my buddy Van Dam to Jerry Lynn, who I had great matches with Sabu. I mean, there's so many people I have wrestled. And even my wife says, "Hey, there's a match of you with this guy." I said, "Oh shit, did I wrestle him?" You know, Bam Bam, Bam Bam Bigelow I wrestled, you know what I mean, on in WCW. Finley I wrestled, the Nasty Boys I wrestled. It's just so many guys who I wrestled in my time. Even wrestling and being in a program with Ric Flair, which
Mhm.
was like, was a small program, was a big program because, yeah, I'm wrestling the Nature Boy. And me and Johnny the Bull are putting the boots in. We're getting on him and we're working with him. We were on a pay-per-view with him, me and Johnny against Lex Luger and Ric Flair. Hey, that's the biggest names in the business. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You talk about cool stuff that you're doing. And going to the WWE, my second time around, and then being able to be with the FBI and being with Nunzio and him
Mhm.
the way title, and then me stepping away from Nunzio and then taking on another persona and then having an undefeated streak with that persona. I mean, that's like, hey, you really know your craft. And like, what people don't know, and I'll give you the skinny on it,
Mhm.
came up from an era of characters. So with being a German, to being Sledgehammer Rock, which
Mhm.
was construction work, was that up to being a Hare Krishna,
Mhm.
being Uncle Chester, which was a gimmick of Uncle Fester, where I had the hand in the box, the light bulb in the mouth, and all
Ah.
that. I even did a mask gimmick called Fantasia, right?
Mm.
Phenomena. Um, and then going to being, Big Vito, the Mafia, being the Baldies, the street kid, and then, Vito in the dress, and then now being the godfather of wrestling and the Don. You're talking about a whole legacy of character changing experiences, which guys don't experience today.
Yeah, you are definitely uh hit that spot on. Um, Now I know my Jay Thunder here, who is actively current in the business. He had a couple questions for you. So Jay, I'm gonna let you go ahead and shoot Big Vito a couple questions you had to ask him, man.
Okay, so
Do
first
I
of
have to
all,
say, do I have to say yeet?
nah, you don't have to say it. No, not at all. No, so I'm so, I apologize because I just had a show last night. So
Yeah.
I'm coming off of the show last night. And one of the things that I kind of want to ask is that, like, how was the, because I know everyone has their different feeling on how it was back in the day, but how was the environment back there in WCW? Like, I have to know.
Guys, when you're in WCW, you had everybody who was who's who, from Goldberg. There's another guy I wrestled. I wrestled Scott Steiner. I wrestled Rick Steiner. Like I said, this is not a mistake of any of my brothers out there, but this is just so many people who I have wrestled, and I've been in the locker room with, and like, you know, WCW, if you got to be a champion, there was so many obstacles and so many great wrestlers with great reputations that you had to fight through to get to that point. And being able to be a tag team champion with Johnny the Bull, that was great. Being able to be one of the best hardcore champions in WCW history and get TV time both ways, guys.
Me too.
You
Me
can't.
too.
Are we good?
So what am I to do?
You gotta mute his chat.
All right. We had an interruption, but we go. All right, so here we go. All right, we'll cut that out. We got technical difficulties, people. We can cut and edit. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's always
So
a
here
cut
we
and
go,
edit.
guys. When you're talking about WCW, what was it like? It's like it took me 3 months to realize that I was tag team champion, and I'm walking down the aisle, and I said, "Holy shit, I'm in WCW." Swear to God, because it was such a whirlwind to be there and be with the pros and be with Brett and be with the guys who were in WWF. And I joined them here in WCW, and I started out as an enhancement talent. And here I am in a major company on a contract. And they said, Vito, you did great in your first pay-per-view, man. Way to go. You really come a long way. And when you go from the bottom of the bottom to the top and be a champion, that is something to be, how would you say? Something to be proud of, something to say your hard work paid off. You're never quitting, you're never denying. Maybe you start out with the shitty rides in the back of a truck, or you start out, as an indie guy and you're paying your dues, you're paying homage, you're doing all the stuff, but you're taking the criticism from the pros and you put it to good use and you don't cry about it. And that's what was me. I was coachable. And I say this repeatedly. If you're not able to take the criticism and use it to your benefit, you'll never make it to the pros. And everybody here, says they're a pro wrestler. You are here on the amateur level. And until you make it to the pros and you walk the aisle, that's when you consider yourself a pro. Everybody thinks like, hey, I put on a pair of boots. And this is no disrespect to anybody out there. This is just my take on things. And please take this humbly, but you don't have the territories to go earn your keep. You get paid to train today. You don't have to go to all these different indie shows, and there's not the veterans to take you and teach you, and that's what's missing from the business. But when a veteran puts his time into you, like many of the WWF stars like SD Jones and the Cheetah Kid Ted Petty and Jimmy Powers and Jimmy Snuka, Bill Eadie, Johnny Rods, the Honky Tonk Man, Sergeant Slaughter, the Iron Sheik, George the Animal Steel. These are guys coming out of the WWF, and it's, here they are wrestling me, the Warlord, the Barbarian, Ivan Koloff. First time I felt manpower was Ivan Koloff when he grabbed my forearm. I said, holy shit, what the hell is this? And like, these are things like you experience as you're coming up, and you know what's what. And you can't be a crybaby. You got to be tough. You got to be willing to, take it, but you got to be able to give it back to these guys, because you're never going to gain their respect, but give it back to them in the proper way and technique of a pro wrestler. Everybody says, oh, this is a shoot. You guys have no idea what a shoot is. No idea. And if you ever seen a shoot, you'd be like, yeah, I think I'll, go to a different business. That's why I tell young pro wrestlers today, Vito, I want to be a pro wrestler. Well, do you have a plan B? No, man, no, you need a plan B. First, I suggest you get a college education, because you need to fall back on something. Then once you have that, dip your toe into pro wrestling because you're not going to make it overnight. Nobody makes it overnight. And everybody
True.
thinks they're going to go from the wrestling school to the top, and this doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, now, Vito, you mentioned, of course, working in WCW. You know, you've been in ECW. I want to touch upon those promoters who ran those specific companies. So, what was it like rubbing elbows with a Vince Russo or Paul Heyman? You know, especially Paul Heyman being one of the greatest managers in the wrestling business today. What was it like working with guys like that?
Okay. So working for Paul Heyman, he was a great motivator. He believed in his product.
Hmm.
He was excited about his product. And when he's excited and he got you to motivate, he's a great motivator. And like you would believe in what he said and you went out and lived his vision. Everybody has a vision of
Hmm.
what their product is supposed to be. And unless you can get with the boss and see his vision of what he wants, you're never going to get it in the wrestling business. Now, Paul Heyman had a vision for me. He put me with all his champions. He put me with everywhere. And he said, Vito, he says, I just don't have a spot for you to be on top here. I said, what can we do? I feel like I'm ready to move up. I mean, it was just wasn't
Hmm.
singles, but that's how we got to the Baldies. The
Hmm.
Baldies excelled. The Baldies were a great group. The Baldies were on course to be great. Only reason they weren't elite is because I left to go to WCW.
Hmm.
If you guys remember that after
Yeah.
we had that big pay-per-view against New Jack Balls and Axel, we
Yeah.
were victorious and we were ready to move up the card. We were ready to like explode. I got the call. And after I got the call, PN News left. You know what I mean? And like all of a sudden, PN News went then it was just DeVito and Angel. you know,
Hmm.
after and then they added Vic Grimes, but the original Baldies were destined for greatness. And I left because I got a good deal with WCW. Going
Hmm.
to WCW, they had an idea for me, and they said, "Listen, we want you to be Vito from Staten Island, who I was.
Hmm.
The way I dressed on TV was the way I dressed in real life, so it wasn't nothing. The way I dressed, acted in the clubs was the way I acted, at home. So the way I did everything on TV was just a natural thing. You know what I mean? So it wasn't acting. I got to be myself. And if you can be yourself in your character, you've accomplished the 80% of it. The 20% is the ring technology and having psychology. But
Hmm.
let me be me, and I was able to excel. So it was great. But I had that great grooming to be in territories to learn how to be in the business, which is what
Yeah.
today.
Okay. Okay. Now, if we can, well, actually, I kind of want to bring it back to your family lineage. You know, we've seen this in the past, even today. You know that in that Italian monster influence is definitely prominent today. But you actually, this was actually your life. You know, you being the nephew of Lucky Luciano, and I know he passed. Uh, like he passed before you were born. You were born a couple years after that. So did you always hear stories of your uncle? Did you know, hey, my family isn't like most families? Like how what was that like?
So here's how it goes, guys, and this is the truth. So in Staten Island, um, before wrestling, I used to work in clubs and I used to work with some people and not knowing who I was related to.
Hmm.
So the way I found out was when my grandfather died, passed away. My mother at the time had come to me and said, "Listen, we have to go to a funeral." I said, "Who died?" He said, "My father." I said, "But your father's here." He says, "That's not my real father. It's my stepfather. This is my real father." And this was of the Lucania family, Lucania Luciano family.
Hmm.
The name was Mormando. So I go to this funeral and I meet this family. And they're all hugging my mother, and it's like, it was a big thing. My mother always stayed close to my Uncle Joe. Joe Lucania was Luciano, but they changed the name from an A to an O because of Ellis Island and the way they did things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So didn't make sense back then. But then when I did the family tree and I wondered why this part of the family didn't talk to this part of the family and this was this,
Mm-hmm.
it's odd because my grandfather, who was also, in the business, I grew up in the business. I was in clubs in the business. I worked for people in the business. Um, it wasn't until later till I did the family tree and I said, okay, let's put A together, and then B, and then all of a sudden all this stuff, man. So I had called a family member and they said, well, this is this. I took it a little further and then I, found out more and I said, I called up again and I said, well, how about this? Well, this is this and this. So it was kind of like kept hidden from me, my brothers, and we didn't know because there was a big mob related story to go with it, which I won't get into here because it's a personal family matter. But
Mm-hmm.
um, who I used to run with in Staten Island was a very famous mob family, and I didn't know I was actually related to part of that family until now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny that I used to run in these circles not knowing I was a cousin or related or had ties to them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just the way it is. So when I came out now, like I lived the life of the real deal, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I didn't know who I was related to back then because I was nuts and I was crazy and I would put your head through a wall and I would do no, but no, all seriousness, I was just, when they asked me to do something, I did it. When there need something needed to be done, I did it. When it came to the clubs, I was the guy. I was the number one guy. You didn't beat me. You didn't. If you fought me, you lost. If you lose a fight, you lose your job. I never lost a fight in the clubs, right? So I was the number one guy. So it was like, okay, you want to test me? Go ahead. I was 275. I was full of gas and testosterone. You weren't beating me. You know what I mean? And like I had a nasty streak in me that was unreal. But then when I had a construction job with the union, I had a construction job with the Jackhammers Union. I used to be given certain assignments where I would do things, right? But it was just part of a lifestyle. And then when you talk about it today, I actually live this lifestyle, guys, and it's real. So everything I did in WCW or everything I did on, TV and everything, it was real because I lived it. And then when you talk about it today, I have to say, thank God I live in Florida, which I always say that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My brothers and my family still live in Long Island and, up in New York. And
Mm-hmm.
for some of the stuff that goes on, we all said, thank God you don't live here because I would have took care of business. Because sometimes you need to step in on some stuff, guys. And, like I said, Vito, thank God you don't live there. You know what I mean? We always have bail money and we always have friends. So So I guess it's good that I'm over here in Florida, but if that's the skinny of it for you guys, as far as being legit and the real deal, and there's no reason for me to come out here and lie and boast. It's just the way my life was. And
Yeah.
now portraying it in the wrestling business, and it is what it is. And then when I see all these wrestlers trying to do this on TV,
Mm-hmm.
comes off phony and fake and
Yeah.
not authentic. It
Yeah.
drives me up a wall. And guys, I know a lot of people want to see me back in the WWE, especially
Mm-hmm.
NXT. They would like to see me in AEW. They would like to see me in NWA. I have tried and I have, gone to great lengths to be involved, but it's just not happening right now for one reason or another. But if you put me with one of these groups, the knowledge I can give to make it legit and make it look real
Yeah.
would be credibility not only to the company, but to the men and women who are doing this character and trying to live this lifestyle. Because the way it comes off on TV, it doesn't look right. And
Yeah.
you guys know it. It's like,
Exactly.
so,
Exactly. And it's funny that you brought that up because um I know recently late last year when NXT came back to Philly at the 2300 Arena, and of course they had the guy Tony D, and Nunzio was there, and I see a lot of people on the internet saying, "Man, that moment was cool, but that would have been even better if Vito was there." Because of what you brought in the past, and again, like you said, that knowledge that you have. Like this was, your life, So and to me, like I said, I think Tony D does great work, but and I'll say that to say this, Vito, just like my co-host Jay Thunder, I've had the opportunity to do work in independence. So started off as a commentator, worked my way up to be a manager, managing my own faction, and you played a huge influence on my gimmick. I called myself the Don Cameron Wayne, and I was this mafioso type of guy, and I watch a lot of your stuff, So, when you say having something authentic, an authentic person such as yourself in situations like that, 100% agree with you, man.
it's just like when I was Nunzio's bodyguard, right? And we won the
Hmm.
cruiserweight title. And I stood outside and I watched his back. I watched his back by being a bodyguard. And a lot of guys say, "Oh, you didn't do much." I didn't have to do much. I was a presence. The
Hmm.
focus was in the ring.
Yeah.
But at one time that I did get involved in a match, I made it count and then I stepped away, right?
Hmm.
When he needed help, I gave him help. It wasn't for me to do 50 spots, which a lot of guys who are managers today, they get the wrong idea of what a manager is. A manager is supposed to be there, confident, standing there, ready. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
So, I
Hmm.
mean, you don't have to do 50 spots, but if you do one spot that gets the heat, you did your job. And then if
Yeah.
the big bump on the comeback, then you made your point. Your presence is
Yeah.
if your guy goes over, there's the vindication of what you did. Look at my guy. One of the greatest managers of all time is Bobby the Brain Heenan. Because it came time
Yes.
for him to talk, it came time for him to do stuff, right? But when it came time for him to take a bump, greatest bump taker of a manager. The Grand
Yes.
Wizard of Wrestling was another great speaker. He didn't get
Hmm.
involved in a match, but he made it notorious. Captain Lou Albano. Now I'm going before you guys' time, but these are the guys who are managers who are real. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And if they had a classy Freddie Blassie, some of these guys were actual wrestlers who became managers and knew the wrestling business. Another manager who was great was Kurt Hennig, who just
Yes.
walked with Ric Flair. Great compliment.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And then, there are other managers out there who did some great things, but when you talk about the history of great managers, to me, those guys, made a difference. Paul Bearer was one of a kind. There will never be another Paul Bearer, right?
Right. That definitely.
Paul Ellering, there will never be another Paul Ellering.
Yeah.
Never be
Right.
another Jimmy Hart, okay? And when you talk about even Kimchi with Kamala, that was a
Hmm.
one gimmick.
Hmm.
He took good bumps when he needed to take good bumps. And this is what wrestling is missing today. And it doesn't like me being the Don of wrestling when I go out there, like when I was wrestling in Rocky Mountain, I didn't have to do anything. people knew waited for me to do something. When it came time for me to lay the smackdown, I did. I didn't have to do
Mhm.
50 million things. The guys who I were in the ring with were very inexperienced, so it was a lot of directing and a lot of waiting. But if you have more experienced wrestlers in there, when it became, of course, more clear. But those guys worked hard. And then one kid who I was working with, um, kid named Mountain Vito, right? He got better every time I came out there. He started to look like something. As soon as I stopped going to Market Mountain, that was it. You know,
Mhm.
he was ready to explode. And even the owner said, he's really changed. And my wife would say, look at how you changed him. You changed his whole persona, his life, his whole gimmick. But
Mhm.
have the experience and a veteran guiding you. That's what we're missing today. Tony D'Angelo, right? Now,
Mhm.
guy is a good worker, but he's never known to be a hitter, right?
Mhm.
Know to be a don unless you've been a hitter, unless you kick somebody's ass or you've been kicking ass for years. You work your way up. You say, I'm the don, I'm the don. Then all of a sudden he says, well, I'm the don of NXT. Thank you for
Mhm.
clarifying that because you are don of NXT. But you're outside of that, you ain't no don and you ain't nobody
Mhm.
to be afraid of you when you walk outside. But if
Mhm.
they see him, I would be more afraid of me, than him.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's no disrespect to him. And I think, me personally, guys, if the WWE NXT brought me in with him and they said, Vito, we want you to take him like you took Johnny the Bull, like you took Ninja, like you took the Baldies and say, hey, we want you to make this work. It would come off and it would work. And he would be legitimized to where one day he could be a legit Don. But he needs somebody with him. And
You're
he's
right.
hard
Right.
working. I say it all the time. He's got the talent, he's got the tools. He just doesn't have somebody with him to guide him.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
it.
100%. You know, when you think of things in the business that makes sense, and when you see him, you can't help but come to mind. Like it just makes sense. That would be a dream faction if we ever got to see that you against him. Either way, you in that situation, it just makes sense. You know.
It just to say me and Johnny the Bull walked up on NXT, right?
Yeah.
Just for say. The Hardys went back to NXT, and the Hardys, yeah, we're here to grade, and then all of a sudden, Hardys never wrestled the Mamalukes. The
Yeah.
Mamalukes never wrestled Devon and Bubba.
hmm
Mamalukes never wrestled, and Mamalukes were one of the best tag teams in WCW. It's just because of
Yes.
politics and bullshit that we separated, never got back together. But when you
Yeah.
talk about a good tag team and legit, and when Mean Gene Okerlund putting you over, and Bobby the Brain putting you over, and Larry Sabisco putting you over, and all the other great, Tony Schiavone putting you over,
hmm
making this real.
Yeah.
That's what it was about.
Yeah.
And unless the announcers put you over, and if we didn't do the work in the ring, then we wouldn't be legit. But we did, and we looked the part.
Yeah. Yeah. You speaking 100% facts on that, man.
Now, man, you got that guy with the Lakers jersey on. He's just sitting there, having chips and pop.
Yeah.
You got any questions?
Yeah.
Got any questions? Give me
Uh,
a holler, man.
okay, so me, I am more of the analyst. I was one of those guys that yeah, I want to be a wrestler, but it probably wasn't in the cards for me. So I analyze a lot of things. So like I was wondering that that WWE run. Because at that time that was more my speed. WCW, when I started watching it, it was about over.
I
Didn't
was
get to
about to
watch
say, yeah, it was about over.
I didn't get to watch ECW. But WWE is when I noticed Vito. Did you ever at any point feel like I could be doing way better, right? More than what I'm doing now. I could be over Nunzio, not as his bodyguard. Was there ever a point where you kind of had that in your mind, like, Maybe I should be doing something more. Actually, be the Don now.
Guys, let me tell you something. I think um, Dutch Mantel said it best, and they asked him a question on a podcast. He said, you had Vito in Memphis, you had Vito in um, Puerto Rico, you had Vito in TNA. Tell us about it." He said, Vito can get heat and was a great worker. Vito just didn't politic and just do what he had to do behind the scenes. And it's not a bad thing. And guys, this is just something that what it was. Do I always thought I should be a man? Could I have been world champion in the right circumstances? Yeah, because my wrestling could back it up. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I could be I could be tag team champion, hardcore champion, intercontinental champion, and all these champions. Being a world champion is the right place, the right time. I always said that, right? But the politicking you have to do backstage, it's something I was not, it just wasn't me to do. And that's the thing I missed in my career. Nobody could ever say I was a slouch or a bad wrestler. I was one of the best wrestlers because I was a stickler and I was a perfectionist. And I made sure my stuff was good. It was tight. It looked good. I looked aggressive. I did everything that I was taught to do. It's just that I did not politic. And he said the same thing. Vito just didn't politic. He says, and Vito was liked backstage. He was, everybody loved Vito. It's just he didn't politic with the right people. I wanted to be known as a great wrestler. I wanted to make it as a great wrestler. I didn't want to kiss nobody's ass. I didn't want to, be that guy. And that maybe that's on me, but being naive. But when you taught wrestling, you want to be recognized for your work, not because of who you hang out with. And here's another thing. Guys can get you jobs in federations and work. Unless you go out and perform, you're not going to make it. Any place somebody put a word in for me or got me in somewhere, I performed and made it work. And I was a worker. Nobody could ever say anything bad about my work rate, who I wrestled with. I never hurt nobody. I was safe. It was tight. It was crisp. It was on the money. I was a gym rat. I was a wrestling gym rat. I would work on my craft. And when you talk about, it's like being a basketball player in the gym.
All the time.
Right?
All the
And I
time.
was in the gym all the time. It's even like when I was wrestling, I was in the gym all the time. I was practicing my craft. I don't know if you guys know this, but when I was Deep South Heavyweight Champion, the way I became Deep South Heavyweight Champion, which is the same as being an NXT champion at developmental, on my off days, they used to fly me down. Vito, why do you want to go down to Deep South and go to Louisville? Because I want to keep in shape. I want to keep crisp. I want to keep working. I don't want to sit at home.
Yeah.
And that's why I was one of the best. And it wasn't Vince McMahon per se, it was people under him who made decisions. And it was such a hard thing because politics in WCW killed WCW. Politics in ECW, because if you got close to Paul and Paul's, it's just a game, and it's nothing bad against any of the guys. I love all the guys, but they just know how to maneuver themselves backstage to get in certain positions so they can accelerate and be these world champions. Do we all agree with all the world champions that are out there? Absolutely not. There are some guys who definitely do not deserve to have a strap, and there are some guys who definitely deserve it. If you were to say, and there's a lot of people who recognize my career now, and they say, shit, Vito was a great friggin' wrestler. What the hell? It's because of politics, guys. And I wasn't a kiss ass guy. I just wasn't me.
Yeah,
I'm glad
we respect it.
I'm glad that you actually said that, because that's like one of the things that I'm like learning now. Like with politicking, like I don't want to be that guy to politic or anything while I'm in the business, just because of the fact that I don't want to kiss anybody's ass at all. Well, I could care less about you know, any of the politics. Granted, some of the politics do get on my nerves. So,
Guys, I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you guys, this is something that I could say this, like now, because like, and it's just, it's known fact. Do any of you guys know about my history being from New York and me coming through the ranks? Do any of you guys ever hear anything about like me going to wrestling schools or me wrestling guys or being anything? I mean, be honest, because if you ever heard anything, they always heard Vito's a fucking wrestler. He's a beast. She when I first started, they said, he's mean, he's a bastard, he's cruel. No, this is the way I was taught. I was taught to be a wrestler. And when I passed it on, I was a wrestler. I didn't beat you up. I wrestled you to death because that's the way they taught me. And they wrestled from the bottom up. And you learn how to get up. I had Johnny Rods, who I was one of the last students who trained mat wrestling. And then another coach there, Larry DeGaris, who trained me to be a mat wrestler. And then when I went to Japan and I was shooting with these guys who were in the Olympics, and these great mat wrestlers in Japan. They say, Vito-san, you good mat wrestling. And, there was a time in Michigan where Kevin Sullivan, the Rock and Roll Express, Balls Mahoney, Sandman, a couple other guys there. And I was wrestling Dan Severn. So I go to him, I go up to Kevin, I said, Kevin, said, you think you want to watch this? He says, why you want to watch this, Vito? I said, I'm going to shoot on Dan Severn today. He said, what? I says, yeah, I'm going to shoot on Saturday. He says, what the fuck are you going to do that for? I said, I want to see how good I am on the mat. So I went after Dan, and I was friends with Dan Severn. There's no, I went in there and I wrestled him, and I went at him for 2-3 minutes. Right? It's the best wrestling you've ever seen in your life that nobody talks about, but they wrote about it in the Michigan paper. We come back. Vito, you're fucking crazy, man. What the fuck? Dan Severn is one of the greatest pound for pound ultimate fighters of our generation or generations before.
Sure. Yeah.
So he comes back. He said, Vito, he says, where did that come from? He says, well, I just wanted to see how good I am. He says, I could always mat wrestle, but I never get a chance to do it. But
Yeah.
being in his persona as a German and being an Italian wrestler, never got the chance to actually show people I can wrestle. So mat wrestling to me, and mat wrestling, when I went to ECW, I took everybody to the mat because the guys came up with Taz and Dreamer and D-Bon and Angel. They knew. They asked one question. It says, Paulie went to D-Bon, I think it was Taz and Dreamer. They said, you think Vito can hang with RVD? I said, I don't know. I said, do you think RVD can hang with Vito? They said, Vito can shoot. He can go. And I had just come back from Japan, All Japan, where I pinned Mizawa and I shot on Mizawa. And I was like, this guy's in green trunks is laughing at me across the ring, infuriated me. So, who the hell is this son of a bitch? So I went in the middle of the ring. I said, come on, let's go. And Baba pushed him forward and there's bang, bang, bang. And I legit hooked him. Everybody was shocked and made news. I pinned this out. Then he'll tagging with Dr. Det, Steve Williams, and Gary Albright, two of the top shooters in the company. Three of us were out there. And if you could see some of the matches from that time, I'm going with these guys. And that was a great time in my career, because I wrestled with the best of the best all around the world.
Yeah, and you can tell it made you better. Like you said, that's one of the things you were known for was being one of the best, like going in there. And one of the words that come to mind, Vito, when your name is brought up is a workhorse. You've been in arenas. I've seen matches where you wrestled in high school gyms. Wherever you wrestled at, you went out there and you wrestled. And I can say, for me personally as a fan, that's one of the things that I appreciated, when or wherever I seen you at, So I think that's one of the key things you need in the business. That's one of the main things is being a good wrestler. Along with other things, but I agree with you on that though.
Now, I got to tell you, my first time I met Booker T and Stevie Ray, I was
Hmm.
in 1992, and I was wrestling for NOW, a first tour, right?
Hmm.
So Manny Fernandez is on the card. Manny Fernandez is a well-known shooter and tough guy and everything, right? So they put me and Manny in the ring one day. So
Hmm.
he was razzing me before the match and he was giving me a little bit of a hard time because he was a vet and he thought I was a rookie. I was a rookie, you know what I mean? There's no
Hmm.
doubt that.
Hmm.
Give me a hard time in the ring, and I picked him up. I slammed him. I slammed him on top of his head.
Hmm.
We went at it in the ring. So Stevie Ray comes up to me. He says, "Vito," he says, "You know you're gonna fight, right?" And I said, "Yep." He says, "You okay?" I said, "I'm good." And I sat in my chair, waited for him to come back, and I just sat like this. He says, "You
Hmm.
in," and I'm friends with Manny Fernandez. I'm totally
Hmm.
friends with him. We're boys. We're cool. So he says, "You stupid motherfucker, you dropped me on my head." Well, I said, "If you would have picked up your fat ass, maybe you would have got over on the fucking thing." All right. So Stevie Ray and Booker T looked at me and they just went like this. This is what you gonna fucking do now? I said, "What do you want to do?" I just sat in my chair. I didn't do nothing. I just sat there waiting, you know. And
Hmm.
there are some other guys in the wrestling business. And I'm not saying I'm the toughest guy, and please do nobody take this, but
Hmm.
I there are guys who are tougher than me, but when it comes to standing up for yourself and standing there, everybody says they want to kick my ass, but ain't nobody come and kick my ass. But when it came time to defend myself in the ring, I mean, I'll give you another instance. I had Van Vader. Everybody knows Van Vader. He's the biggest and baddest son of a bitch there was. So was we're
Yeah.
so I was on tour with Legion of Doom, who were my buddies, Animal and Hawk. So
Hmm.
Van Vader's giving me the business. We wrestled one night. And it gives me a hard time in the ring. Nice shit. I said, "Mr. Torrey, let's go home. Let's do this." Next night, he's fucking still fucking busting my balls, getting on me. So Animal and Hawk just see me sitting there mad. And he said, "Vito, you okay?" I said, "No." I'm going to the ring. He says, "Where you going to the ring for?" I said, "I'm gonna fuck up. I'm gonna fight Van Vader."
Hmm. Wow.
Yep. I swear to God, this is the truth, guys. And
Wow. That's
they looked at me like, "You going to do what?" I said, "I'm going to fight Vader right now." I said, "Fuck him." And I took a march to the ring. He said, "No, Vito, you stay right here." I said, "We're going to the fucking ring." So they
Mhm.
went to the ring and they asked Vader, said, "What the fuck you do to Vito?" "What, man? I didn't do nothing." Yeah. Well, Van Vader, I know his past, and I'm not shitting on the guy. And he had a great career. He's a great, great wrestler, but politicking and doing some things. And then, him talking about the Legion of Doom to me, and I'm their boy, and then
Yeah.
doing stuff, and you're just like, "All right, what do you say?"
Hmm.
Oh, it's like Hawk went up to the ring, so what'd you do to beat us? How about if I kick your fucking ass? You stop giving him a fucking hard time, and Joe was right behind him, right?
Hmm.
And that's how that went. And then he came back and he had a different attitude, and it was like, "Oh man, I didn't mean nothing." It was like, "Are you good, man?" But I didn't take shit from fucking nobody. And when it came,
Hmm.
I was gonna throw, I was gonna throw. Another time in Puerto Rico, another
Hmm.
wrestler who guys will maybe they'll know the name, a gentleman by the name of Invader.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yep. Hmm.
So we were doing something in Invaders, the IWA, and I was the hottest heel they had. They were bringing this kid up, and this was in Bayamon. And I was undefeated. I was champion. They had another kid they were pushing to be champion. They made him champion, and we had drawn a 1,000 fan house. So I said to Savio, Savio, I said, "Why are you having this now?" I said, "We could draw us a bigger house." I said, you cannot beat me now. I said, this, I'm the only heel you have in the territory.
Mhm.
So Invader kept coming on doing interviews, and Invader kept doing interviews like he wanted to fight me. I said, Invader wants to fight me and he wants to make a point. I said, listen, this is not going to happen. I said, I know he's been here a long time. I said, but I said, this is now. And, it went back and forth, and, there was a controversial pin. Like, I come back, he thought he was going to get over on me in the dressing room. And he goes, and this son of a bitch didn't want to do this and do this. And he pushes me. I went at him. They grabbed me. And then they put me in the shower. Right.
Mhm.
I'm standing there with Savio and Miguelito Perez. Not too many people ever heard this story, but it's a true story.
Mhm.
So I'm standing in the shower and they're going, oh my God, oh my God. The boys in the dressing room, they told Invader to get the fuck out of the dressing room. And they took out their guns and said, you're not touching Vito. No fucking way is this happening again here. You're not ruining it.
Wow. Wow.
So I said to myself, as soon as the first guy comes through that fucking thing, it's going to be fucking bang, bang, bang. And I was going. I mean, I was in a legit small shower with Savio, and they were like, oh my God, this can't happen again. And I was ready to fire up.
Mhm.
So that's another one. And probably the biggest guy ever. I told you I was crazy. I just fucking gassed and just, everybody, it was 1995,
Mhm.
power plant.
Oh God.
As a guy training there, and I had just come back from another tour of Japan, and I had been working the Indies, and I just got out of Memphis. So I go to lock up with this guy, and he punches me in the face on the lockup. And Paul Orndorff is standing there, Terry Taylor, um, Hez Watley. This is some good names, brother. This is some good names.
Yeah.
So he punches me in the face on the lockup, and I said, "You stupid motherfucker!" And I shove him.
Mhm.
Hey, man, I'll kick your fucking ass. There was a guy there who was the mummy, who was Jerry Reese, is standing there, and he fucking like, oh man, this is gonna be fucking great. Lupita's gonna go, and then fucking, yo man, you can't be fucking doing this here. What the fuck? So the guy I was gonna fight was the Big Show.
Oh,
Mhm.
So, so here's a lesson to everybody. I had the biggest balls in the business. When Vince McMahon said you had the biggest grapefruits, no, you didn't. It's fucking, I had fucking some balls. I didn't have any brains, but I had some balls. So when you talk about being that guy and fighting for everything you can get and taking on everybody and proving that you could be the best wrestler and not being a politician, that's part of how I was me, and that's why I was me. I wanted to be known for my wrestling, not because of politics, because I was a great wrestler. And if somebody came push to shove, I stood my ground.
Mhm.
So whether we're smart or not, I don't know. But I gained people's respect because they would just looked at me like, what the fuck? Are you serious? I mean, a lot of you guys wouldn't even think like, a lot of you guys wouldn't even dare. Like, that's a star-studded fucking card right there. Those are some tough guys.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I said, I'm not saying I'm the toughest, but
You could have fooled me because I mean honestly when you was on that undefeated streak in WWE, I was just like, yeah, he's next. He got next. He has next. He has to be next. If he doesn't, Vince is stupid. And then I was just like then next thing you know it was like a magic act. You were gone, and I was like, what happened to Vito? And it was just like it was on to the next. And I was like, man, he was one of the tough ones. Like the tougher ones that I liked. But you know,
politics, my brothers. When I was supposed to fight, here's I'll give you the skinny on that. Big Vito against Booker T for the World Championship on the CW Network.
Mhm.
Undefeated streak against undefeated streak. Me and Booker. Who do you think the people wanted me to? Who do you think the people wanted to win that match?
You.
Right.
You. Yep. Mhm. Yep.
Politics into play. I went to the CW network that morning. I promoted the show. I get to the arena. Vito, can I see you for a second? He says, yeah, what's up? So I go in the office. They said, Vito, we're gonna put the Undertaker in your spot. I was like, what? I said, why? And they said, well, CW Network wants a bigger star in that spot. There was no bigger star at the time. I was undefeated in politics.
Mm.
So if it was a time when politics ever came to play, fellas, that was my shot to be world champion, right? And it was a time I was ahead of my time because I did a gimmick that wasn't accepted, and people like myself, who I portrayed, wasn't accepted. But if I did come off with that victory, I would have been I mean, I was already the biggest baby face, but that would have elevated me to superstardom. And it would have been, it didn't matter what I did after that. If I would have accomplished the unthinkable, beat King Booker, who is my brother, who I respect, and is nothing against him and Sharmell, but I don't know what happened in a meeting, but, and I could tell you why the dress gimmick ended, because Michael Hayes became the head booker of SmackDown, called me aside, and he said, we can't have a guy like you being on my show, and that's the end of the dress.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's exclusive footage right there. Definitely didn't know that. Um, well, and that's a perfect segue to this next question, Vito. Um, you had an opportunity to share the locker room with one of the greats who's no longer here with us, Eddie Guerrero. What was that like, being in the locker room with a guy like Eddie?
Eddie was a fun-loving guy, and he was a great wrestler. He was a good human being, good family man. But like everybody, personal issues.
Yeah.
So the day he passed away, me and Nunzio, Chavo, Rey Mysterio, Eddie, Chris Benoit always used to go to the gym at the same time. So me and Nunzio were in the gym, and we're saying, where is everybody? And we don't know. We get to the arena, we find out Eddie passed away, and we went to the Seas tour that night. Tough pill to swallow, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a shocking, shocking and life-changing experience for me personally, because here I was, and I was like, I gotta live my life. I never bought a house. I haven't bought the car I want yet. And like, I know these are material things, but it's things that you want that are on your bucket list in life. When I came home from that tour, I went and bought the Cadillac I wanted, that I was looking at for months, but I didn't have the guts to buy, but I bought it. And then I went out and bought my first house, all because I had Guerrero's death. I went to Tampa. I asked WWE. He says, okay, but I said, Vito, he says, you don't want to go to Miami Beach, because I wanted to live in Miami Beach.
Yeah.
He said, go to Tampa. So I went to Tampa. I saw a condo I loved. And he said, all right. He said, Mr. LaGrassa, we need $6,000 for you to put a down payment on. I said, that's 12. In my pocket, I put the 12 grand on the table. I said, here you go. That's how big it was. He says, you serious? I've never been more serious, man.
Yeah, that's a very cool story.
Boss. That's boss.
Yeah. Yeah.
One day. One day.
So Vito, and I know this is a question that we all wanted to ask you. When and you told us some incredible stories. When did wrestling, or what was there a key moment in wrestling where you can say this is when wrestling broke my heart?
I think that when I got the phone call from WCW that they weren't taking, they were paying me out my contract, and WWE calling me because I was supposed to go up to TV because I was working on a new gimmick in the developmental. And that was the Muay Thai fighter gimmick, which was very good. And I was ready.
I heard about that. Yeah.
I was ready to go up to TV the next week, and I get a call, from the same gentleman, John Laurinaitis from WCW, and WWE.
Yeah.
Vice
And
President of Talent Relations.
John Laurinaitis, VP of Operations. How you doing, buddy? Yeah, Vito, listen, we don't have nothing for you. And, the writer said, we're going to have to let you go. Be good. I'll talk to you soon. Bye. That was, I was like, what are you talking about? I says, Steve Kern and Mike Bucci just came down and told me I was coming up to TV. And Mike Bucci was one of my boys. He wasn't going to lie to me. And Steve Kern was one of my guys. And like, all of a sudden, John Laurinaitis made that phone call. Well, there's another story that goes behind that, but I won't get to it on this. But politics, my friends, politics.
Now, and it's crazy that you mentioned that because, like, if we go back around that time period, towards the tail end of WCW, of course, we've seen the documentaries, we've seen the he said, she said, and Eric Bischoff stated himself before Vince bought WCW, Eric was set to buy it and rebrand it. Now, if that had a went through, would you have stayed with WCW if Bischoff
Yeah,
was able to buy it?
I wasn't going. I was happy in WCW. I had no beefs with it.
Hmm.
I wasn't looking to go to WWE. I was happy being at WCW. That's what, it's one thing in wrestling is I'm loyal to the company. ECW, before I left, I wanted to stay at ECW. He said, Paul, I want to go. I made my niche. I said, Vito, I can't pay you this money. You have to go. This is what you work for. When I
Hmm.
went to WCW and that happened, it was like, okay, they're paying me out. I was like, but what am I supposed to do?
Hmm.
Like TNA, I went back to Germany. I was like, I was all over the place. And then, XWF I went to, and then it was just a whirlwind before I signed with WWE. And when I signed with WWE, I thought I had stability again. But then wrestling business is a crazy place, guys. And unless you do the politic game and you buddy up with people, I mean, they advertise it more that it's social media now, but it's a who's who and who's your job. Cody Rhodes has a friend named, what's his name? Ricky
Ricky Saints,
Sting.
he was, yeah,
Yeah.
Ricky Starks, AEW, yeah.
Ricky Sting, right? Now he's Cody Rhodes' buddy,
Hmm.
best friend. He's got a job.
Yeah.
All right. He couldn't crack the top 10 in AEW.
Hmm.
Wasn't doing nothing, but he's got a job. There's a lot of friends of the friends of the friends that have jobs. There's nothing wrong with it,
Yeah.
but it's just the way the business is. So,
Yeah. The old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. That and just to speak on that time period towards the tail end of WCW, we've heard from other performers that worked at WCW at that time, her Ray, Booker, they were worried because they didn't know if they were going to have a job or not.
Mhm.
What was that when you found out, when you seen Vince appear on that Titantron, Shane's coming up there? What was your mind thinking at that time? Were you like, holy shit, like what's going on?
It was just like kind of shock and you didn't know what was going to happen. But there's a lot of things behind the scenes that went on, guys, that a lot of people don't know about that I really
Mhm.
keep to myself. But
Yeah.
it just wasn't as cut and dry as everything seems. So let's just keep it like that. And
Hmm.
it's a shame that WCW was bought out and kind of ruined wrestling, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not my call. It's what somebody else called. And you know what? There's a lot to be said for making mistakes in the business, but there's a lot of things for success. And everybody can blame Vince McMahon for a lot of things. And I know he's under a lot of fire right now, but when it comes to business and him doing it, not the
Hmm.
underlings,
Hmm.
he achieved some great things in the wrestling industry as far
Hmm.
as a businessman.
Hmm.
But when it
And
comes to treating me as a person on a one-on-one level, not the company. He always treated me with respect and he was cool with me.
Mm.
It wasn't the company and the underlings.
Mm.
So
And oh, go ahead, Vito. I'm sorry.
just saying that a lot of people have a perception of what she is,
Hmm.
but he's a good businessman. He's made
Hmm.
millions of dollars, obviously. Um,
Hmm.
as far as being one-on-one with people, people have different stories and relationships with him. I never had a bad episode with him.
Hmm.
Treated me with respect, just like the rest of the McMahon. They're like Linda McMahon and Shane and Stephanie, right?
Hmm.
Respect. They never had any bad words, but the underlings of the business, that's where everything comes choppy.
Mm.
People do on their personal time is their personal business. When people do in their personal life, you don't know because you're not there and you can't speculate on things. Um, the best way to explain things is, as far as Vince McMahon goes, is he did a lot of great things for the wrestling business on a business level.
Hmm.
He mentored a lot of young people and gave them careers, and like he mentored people and made them stars. He
Yeah.
was a good friend to some people, which is a good thing. And I'm not here boasting or trying to kiss anybody else, but this is what my thing is. Just like Paul Heyman.
Hmm.
Heyman didn't do anything to me on a personal level, but when it came to business, it was like one small thing that could have been better, and that was on a video game because I had left for WCW. You know,
Hmm.
I was in the video game, then I was out of the video game, and there was a discrepancy, but nothing that was like monumental stuff. I understood it was business, When it
Hmm.
comes to Eric Bischoff, I never had any bad words, and Eric Bischoff has praised me and said great things about me on his podcast. When it comes to Vince Russo, he's my buddy. Everybody knows that, you know what I mean? And, you know, um, everybody has their view on Vince Russo, but I know him, this man, 34 years.
Hmm.
Everybody's got their own take on Vince Russo. It's just like everybody else, like everybody has something with Hogan and Flair and this one and that one, and people have things with me. But when it comes to the wrestling business, here I am 34 years later. You guys are interviewing me. I'm going to wrestle next week, and I'm not broken down. You see, I'm in good shape. I look good. So
Exactly.
I mean,
Mhm.
it means I must be doing something right. And
Yeah.
on that note, I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. And I can't express, gratitude for having me on your show. Um, thank you again. I know all you guys, this has been a big treat for you guys. My wife has been telling me that you guys are excited. Um,
Yes, definitely.
have any final words from the Yeet man or the Lakers fan up there?
I,
Um,
Okay.
but you go ahead, Chris. You got it. You got it.
Okay. 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 My last question for you is, if wrestling didn't work, and I know that we were discussing before we started, that you were, D1 scholarship athlete, what would you have done if wrestling didn't work?
Wrestling didn't work. Hmm. This is a tough question, guys. It's just, I don't know. I probably would have had a life in Staten Island and, maybe a union, maybe doing other sorts of business, you know what I mean? It's just, but when I left Staten Island, it was time to leave. It was just,
Mhm.
I made the right decision. And I can't really say what I would have done. I can't really say. It's up in the air. But I'm grateful for the opportunity I had to wrestle. But if you don't put in the work, you ain't gonna make it nowhere. And if you don't, I'm one of the lucky ones who got to have a full career. So not
Yeah.
everybody is in wrestling, guys. Just remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Vito, we want to end it on this question. This is kind of like a fun question. This is a grand finale question.
I
And
was gonna
and
say, I was like, let me just at least get one in before you ask that
Go ahead,
question.
man. Go
okay,
ahead.
okay,
Go
go
ahead
ahead,
with your Yeet shirt. Go ahead.
man.
Probably paid
So
1995 of that song, bitch. Go ahead.
all right. So as wrestler to wrestler, like as looking at a vet, looking at, pretty much because I've only been in the game for about 6 years. So as a vet, what advice could you give me?
Okay, here's what I'm gonna tell you. You want to make it in the wrestling business, right? Now,
Hmm.
I'm gonna ask you some questions. How old are you?
33.
33. Okay.
Yes.
You have 6 years in the wrestling business. Now, what do they look for in NXT?
I mean, for the most part, they look for young people. For the most part, young people,
No, no, you can't
athletic.
really say that because they've been hiring people who have experience.
Yeah.
So, not young people. What do they look for? Bodies, right?
Yeah.
Athletic bodies. So the first thing is you got to say, hey, what is my competition? Your competition is everybody who goes to NXT for the tryout and how they look. They're all physically fit, they're athletic because they're trying to get athletes and not wrestlers, right? Who have experience because they want to mold their own. So this is like Vito coming out of WCW and me wanting to go to WWE because I didn't have to be 275, 290. I had to be 205. So what does that mean? Change your body, change your look, right? So that means if this after 6 years is not doing it, change your body. Now, how many times a week do you train at a wrestling school?
That's pretty hard because now the wrestling promotion that I'm with, they're not doing any training right now because they need a new building. So it's a little hard right now. I don't get too much of that in right now.
Are there any other rings you can go to train? Because I used to train 4 days a week and used to go and practice my craft.
So that's a process that I'm working on because right now I'm kind of like in between places right now. So for the most part, where I was, everything was like set in stone. Then the building they were at, they were paying too much, so they had to go somewhere else. But now that would mean that I would have to go and travel, which I'm trying to work on. Those are things that I'm working on right now.
Okay. Now, the other thing we're going to work on, right? When you go to wrestling shows, try to get as many wrestling shows as you can. Money is not important, but what I tell all the people is practice. This is practice. Whenever you get a chance to be in front of the crowd, it's practice. So it doesn't matter if you're making whatever, your goal is to make it to NXT, WWE. So what you need is practice and practicing your craft. So you need to go to as many indie shows and many wrestling shows as you can. When you the investment you're making is in yourself. Have a clean gimmick, have knee pads, have a look. Take care of your body and invest in your body because your body's going to make you money. So whatever your gimmick is, invest in it. Don't look half-assed, look full. If that helps you, that's the best advice I can give you since you're at this crossroads at 33. You know what I mean? Have you ever been overseas before?
No, never. I have not stepped foot. Most of my journeys, even as a, even as a person, I've been only in the Midwest. That's where my foot has been the whole time.
So another thing I could tell you is try to go overseas and try to get some experience in England. Try to go to Puerto Rico, see if Germany has anything. These are what you get to learn different styles of wrestling because wrestling is not 101 in the States. There's 101 Germany, there's 101 Puerto Rico, there's 101 Japan. Have you ever tried to go to a dojo or go to Japan and try to get in down there?
I've seen a couple of like anytime that I would see that they were coming into town or anything like that, I kind of, I guess I hesitate just because of the fact that I know, like, I guess I'm afraid, I guess, more so. And I know I'm not supposed to be, but I'm just more so afraid to dip my toe in that situation just to feel like, hey, I don't know. I feel like I'm not ready for that. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I'm going to ask you another question. What is fear? Fear is imaginary. You always stick your chin out, and if you get the first shot on your chin and you get up, then you conquer fear, right?
Right.
Basically.
So if you get in there and they out wrestle you, they beat you up, and you're still standing there after the first thing, and you tell them, hey, what are we going to do tomorrow? You just conquered, you just defeated them because they think they got you out of the ring and they got you out of the business. But if you say, hey, what are we going to do tomorrow? This was great. And you come back, that means that you eliminated the fear factor. Now they're going to learn to work with you and try to teach you. So there is no fear. Now, if I can go and do the things I told you about that I did, and I'm just a crazy son of a bitch, I have no fear. You know what I mean? And and those guys are legit. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm not even in the caliber of being a tough guy. I just, when it comes down to it, you got to you stand your ground as a man, stand there with all these wrestlers. And like, all those wrestlers I mentioned, like Steve Williams and Gary Albright, two legit shooters, two Olympic, NCAA, Scott Steiner, NCAA, like talking about amateur, Olympic wrestlers from Japan. It's not about not being ready. Are you ready to take that chance? Who the hell goes and challenges Dan Severn? Shit. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you talk about not having fear, but it's the confidence you have in your wrestling ability for you to go in there. And
Yeah.
if anybody's listening, and this is not a boast, this is just the era I came from, and this is how I was taught. So if you really want to make it in the wrestling business, you change your body, you find yourself a place to roll around, work on your craft, take as many shows, try to get out of the States and go abroad and try to wrestle overseas. You're going to broaden your horizons to see the difference in wrestling. And when you come back, you'll be that much more educated. I hope that helps you.
No,
That's
that definitely like opens my mind a little bit more because like I said, I've been doing this for 6 years and like my goal is to, go pro. And like a lot of things have been kind of like holding me back, I should say. Like say for instance, age wise has been holding me back because I think to myself, oh, I came in late in the game. But then I look at people like DDP and like Batista and anybody else that has done this and they've made it work. Um, so the age thing was blown away, and I was like, okay, that's cool. But anything else, it's just been kind of like, okay, so then where do I go from here? Because I know that everything else needs to change, but I also need to make sure that I guess I'm more so about the fact that like, I love wrestling,
Mhm.
but I also don't want to feel like I'm wasting my time.
Bro, if you don't, you got to put the time into it to see if you're wasting your time. Like I said, your body is going to be your seller, right? And if you have a good look, if you think you're overweight, if you think you need to trim your belly, if you think you need to tighten your abs, your legs, get yourself into a better workout routine, go to practice your craft. It's not about how many clotheslines you can throw. It's about how you get up from the mat. And if you can get up from the mat, you can do anything. You know what I mean? Make yourself, athletic in the ring where You can get up to the top rope. You know, one thing my wife and I look at is like when we look at the ECW tapes. I was a leapfrogging son of a bitch. Like, and everything I had a leapfrog.
That's true.
Elbow. I dropped the flying headbutt. I did a reverse splash. I did everything, right? So, and I was a big guy, and I'm doing this stuff. And then you're talking about, you know, Puerto Rico when I was 290 and I was still doing it. You know what I mean? And like, you know, 275, 270 in WCW, and I'm off the top rope all the time. And being with these guys who are monsters. Remember, if you look at the rosters, all the guys that wrestled, a lot of those guys were 6'4", 6'3", jacked to their gills. You know what I mean? But I didn't look small to them. I just wasn't cut up. You know what I mean? I was still a big guy. And when I stood next to Goldberg in the ring and Goldberg was a monster, I didn't look that small. I look at it and against Steiner, I didn't look small.
Yeah.
These guys were just that big.
Mm.
You know what I mean, guys?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Definitely, man.
It's just like one of those things. And like my boys Chronic, both of them was 6'4" and like monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those guys.
Freaking
Yep.
huge.
And here I am hanging with these guys, and these guys are big boys, you know, and it's not a game in there. And when these guys are hitting you back and forth, and you got to be snug, can't be afraid. You know what I mean? And wrestling Kevin Nash, you know, when I wrestled Kevin Nash on Nitro, when was the last time you seen a 7-footer get suplexed?
Yeah,
Never.
haven't, yeah.
Not too many times, unless it's off the top rope.
No, and then, hey, I'll even give you another thing. You know, how many people suplex Bam Bam Bigelow straight over their head?
Yeah.
Very short.
How many people suplex Kamala? Kamala
God.
over their head.
Yeah, these are giants. Yeah. You're right.
That's some beef.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have the power. And you know, like Brian Clark, you know, I mean, not Brian Clark, but Brian Clark. He always says, Vito, you wanted a pound for pound one of the strongest guys in wrestling. You and Johnny Paul. He says you could handle anybody in there, you know, power wise. And these guys were bigger than me. And if they were my power, and those guys are powerful. But you had to be able to be in there with these guys, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why I say, work on your body, work on your craft, invest in your time. Give yourself a year. If you're going to dedicate it, go a hard year. And after a hard year, if your body's trimmed and you look good and you feel lean and you're good, try to go to NXT. Put in your application. Put in your stuff. Do you know what I mean? Start to go other places. If you go now because you're not confident, you will fail. Put yourself to the test and say, I put in a year, I'm ready to go. I signed my WWE contract at 41. So 41, I was looking pretty damn good. And here I am now. I still look like I'm 41, and I can still sign another contract, you know, but you know, if you're not using your birth certificate, I'll buy it off you for $19.95 and two each.
Oh man.
That is amazing advice, Vito.
I appreciate it, Vito. Thank you so much.
Always, man. You good.
Yeah. And we just want to end this thing with a fun question. You know, something me and the guys talked about that we want to ask you. Kind of want to paint the picture for you.
Yeah.
You're out with the guys. You're at the restaurant, Carmine's, getting some good food, you know, and you got 50 guys in there, a couple of wise guys that just don't want you and the boys in there. You need to pick 4 of the wrestlers, can be from any generation, past or present, including yourself. You need to pick 4 of the wrestlers to make sure you guys are getting out of there and getting to the car safe.
That's a lot of guys, fellas. That's a lot of guys. You know what? I'm going to give you this. All right. I'm going to take 4 wrestlers. Well, I'm going to take in that place, and we're going to walk out of there unscratched. We're going to take Stacy Keibler.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to take my wife, Noelle Harlow.
Okay. All
And I'm
right.
gonna take the Nitro girls. And we walking out of that son of a bitch. And we're
You know
gonna
what?
have drinks.
You know what? You know
Yes.
what?
Yes.
Beautiful.
That's
That's the best
that's
answer I think I
awesome.
can come up with.
Yes.
Oh, that's
That
beautiful.
is
That is
that's an awesome
beautiful.
answer. That is an awesome
That is
answer. You
beautiful.
know, and you being the first person, of course, the first interview to answer that question, man. So it's going to go down in history. So when we look back on this, yeah, because we're going to be asking that question a lot. So, and that we love
They
that
say
answer,
you're
man.
picking the Nitro girls and you're going in and fucking fighting motherfuckers. Who we fucking up? Just about everybody in that
Just
place.
about everybody in there.
Uh
Yeah.
huh. Uh huh. Makes sense. Yep. Makes sense. But
Man.
thank you,
Oh my
Vito. This has
God.
been
Beautiful.
such an honor.
Nah,
You
I'm glad I could do this for you guys. I hope to see you at the show. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, and hopefully, like I said, because we know you got plenty more stories to tell. Hopefully, we can do a part two with you, man.
Nah, no problem, brother. I thank you guys for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to interview, publish the show, let the people know I'm coming out. I hope to see you soon. And
Definitely.
thank you again.
Kenosha, Wisconsin, Power Horse. Catch Vito there, going against Selden Crane, and Vito's gonna have him sleeping with the fishes.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peace out, fellas. I hope you have a great day.
You be blessed, man. You be
Thank you,
blessed.
man.
All right. Salute.